Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest in studio with us. So this is Lieutenant Wayne Magee. He was our contact when we did our speech at Mass Maritime Academy, and I Googled you after I saw the emails, and I was like, I want to check out this man, see who we're talking to. And I saw that he had a book on Amazon. And I went through this book, and I was blown away by your story and what you've gone throughout your life to become the man you are today. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and then can you go into your story of how you went from a little baby with very little chance of survival to the man you are today?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm honored to be on your show here, and definitely honored to be here. As far as my story, I mean, it kind of starts, from the beginning, as far as being a kid. Not given much as far as life expectancy because of having a heart problem as a kid, as an infant, but also having a thing, CCD, or cranioclydocystoses, which is a syndrome that affects your growths and bones and stuff like that. So definitely quality of life and stuff like that. So having those two things going on, especially with the heart conditioning, the doctors did not think I was going to live much past 2. And if I did, they thought I would have severe difficulties and not really doing much and going far. So this is something that we communicated to my parents and stuff like that. So this is kind of how my story started, as far as being in that hardship and just going through there.
So you were in foster care?
Yes.
Okay, so how did that part get in? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, foster care, my biological mother, she had some difficulties as far as mental health, so wasn't able to take care of me. So at a young age, at 6 months, I was placed in foster care because of her health not being able to take care of me. So I was in foster care. I was pretty blessed in the sense that I was only in 2 homes. And I was in foster care from 6 until 14 years old. At 14, I was subsequently adopted, but the second home I was in was a person that eventually adopted me. So I was very fortunate as far as my story in foster care. I was only in 2 homes. Yeah.
Our good friend Anthony Trucks has been on the show 3 times, and he talks a lot about foster care and how it was, for most of the families back then, it was just a paycheck.
Yes.
And he was treated terribly. He had to chase chickens for meals. He slept in a chicken coop. He had to lick the bottom of people's shoes, and it's just incredible the man he has become today. But for you, in your book, I read a little bit of it, and you dealt with a lot of bullying early on, and I think that's still something that's prominent.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah,
maybe now, I don't know, maybe now more than ever, at least it's broadcast more than ever. How did you deal with feeling different, if you did, and being treated different, and did that seep into your psyche and become part of your identity as a kid?
As far as dealing with it, for me, it was something that that ate at me, as far as being bullied or being name calling and stuff like that. It's something that really did eat at me. But I guess the support of my family, as far as allowing me to know that yes, I was different, but it was okay to be different. I also did have some bullying with my biological family. Just the fact that I was interested in like going to schools with that. I mean, people are going to make fun of you if you're a nerd or something like that. So had that going on with my biological family as well. And the fact that I dressed differently than everyone else. So, I mean, I had that going on. But the fact of just being comfortable with myself, even though it didn't feel good at the moment as far as being different. So I was able to, as far as in my story, as far as being tenacious, I was able to be determined on the goal, on the mission, and use whatever I was going through as a way of pushing through when those hiccups when people are making fun of you and stuff like that, not feeling good, but I was able to be tenacious through that. Yeah.
So I know I'm hammering right now.
You're good. Keep it
But
up.
so tenacious is the first. So the name of your book is Tough Blows.
Yes.
Right. Tough is what's the word when
Acronym.
yeah,
Acronym. Yes.
It's an acronym. Yeah. Can you walk us through what tough means to you? And I know tenacious is one of them.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that and kind of touch on why those things were so important for you to get through the things that you got through?
Yeah. So I mean, tough as you mentioned, is an acronym. So obviously T, tenacious, being determined, being hyper conscious. So that's kind of
some would say.
some would say. So
I'm gonna
that's
check the camera.
And
real
teaser
quick.
clip.
So obviously tenacious, and then obviously O. So I mean, so seeking opportunities. I mean, that's something that was definitely important in my development. It just every time an opportunity came, or even something that I was just seeking to get better, improve, or an opportunity to grow. So definitely seeking opportunity. Unity. I'm sorry, unity. But first, I think it comes from yourself. Unity with yourself, like what your mission is, what your purpose is. Starting there, and also seeking unity with others. So that's what the U is, and obviously H. I mean, sorry, I skipped one. Yeah, G. G. I mean, group. So unity, obviously unity with yourself and others, but also groups to grow in, like growing groups, mentorships. I mean, with that, it goes. I think it goes in order to be truly in a good group. I think you need to have all three levels, like people being mentored, but also mentoring people, and also have people that are where you want to be. So having all three levels of mentorship happening,
Right.
And you being kind of in the center of that. Yeah.
We talk about that a lot with the 5 buckets. We talk about having people on your level, your peak performance partners.
Yes.
Then you have people that you mentor, and then you have mentors that are 10 to 20 years ahead of you.
You saw it at the speech.
Oh, that's
I
right.
used it as a slide.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, you were paying attention to Kevin's speech.
So we got TOUG. What is H?
H is the hardest one. I mean, it's the hardest one that I had to learn, and I'm still learning it. It's just asking for help.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. And having the humility to just ask for help. So that's H.
That's one thing so our mentor and our coach, David Meltzer, one of the things he preaches is ask for help, ask and attract. Right? You'll attract if you ask. And I think for you, why do you think it's hard? I know for me, a lot of it comes with like, you don't owe me anything, so I don't want to ask. I don't want to be a burden. But I think at the end of the day, it's always been self-doubt for me, like why I don't want to ask. I don't want to put myself out there. What do you think it is for you?
I think for me, it was shame. I mean, because obviously you want to appear strong. Like I can do it by myself.
Right.
I don't need anyone's help. And also, it just sometimes you have to check yourself in a sense that yes, you may have all this experience or even credentials, or or it could be something that you can do because of maybe your schooling or something like that. But to humble yourself and just say, I need help, or I want to get the best result in this situation, so I need to ask for help. So I guess it's kind of all those things. I mean, it's getting to the point where you can humble yourself to ask.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's very important.
It's difficult. I think it's one of the greatest things that we've learned and been able to practice. Like once you ask somebody for something and then it pays off eventually, then it kind of locks in.
Right.
And you're not afraid to do it anymore.
And you realize people like to help. A lot of people. Not everyone, but a lot of people like to help. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah.
And when they're helping you, they're learning it even deeper. Because when I teach things, like our friend Bianca asked me to help her with speaking, and now I'm realizing some of the things that I didn't even know I was doing behind the scenes because I'm helping her. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was about mentorship. So you had a mentor early on. I believe his name, if I recall from the book correctly, is Jim?
Jerry.
Jerry. Name of the J. Jay. Okay, I was close. All right. What has that been like for you? Because you had a mentor pretty early on.
Yes.
Who was friends with your...
My mother, yes.
Your mother.
Yes.
Can you go into that and why that's so important?
I think it was important for me. I mean, having that strong male role model, because I was adopted into a single mother home, and then have her realize that she couldn't give me everything, so she needed to really look for male role models and mentorship for me in order for me to really truly grow up to be a man. So for me, that was very important early on. And having that in my life was having that man, that strong role model, that person that's been where I was trying to go. As far as, I mean, he was a family man, he was a career man. I mean, so having all that at my disposal to kind of pick his brain, and I still call him to this day. I mean, I try and almost monthly. We're always constantly in touch, but try to at least have that monthly phone call, check in.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
What did you have another one?
I do.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do.
Go ahead.
So one of the things I wanted to, so we often say on this show that your adversity is your advantage if you can develop a virtue from it.
Yeah.
So you were born into ultimate adversity. I mean, I read in the book that at one point you were small enough at the beginning of your life to fit in the palm of an average man's hand.
Yeah.
So, and the doctors told you for a very long time that you wouldn't live past 2 years old.
Yeah.
Can you go into that? And also my next question is very simple. When did you get into personal development, and was it because of the adversities?
It was because of the adversities, because I felt like giving this story of overcoming it, I felt like it was something I can pass on to others. So that's kind of where that came from. Probably your first question kind of...
First question is, can you go into what it was like trying to prove all these experts, quote unquote, wrong when it came? I mean, you talk about struggling with self-doubt.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having all of these experts with all these degrees telling you that you won't live past 2, and then just from the very beginning being resilient enough to really prove that wrong?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I would say faith was a big part of my story.
Right.
As far as, yes, I had the MDs saying one thing, I had the PhDs saying another thing.
Right.
As far as the MDs, as far as the doctor, medical saying, well, you're not going to make it to class 2. Or when I got a little older, we really don't think you should be involved with physical education, as far as running around in the gym or being on the track team. These are things we don't think you should do, or even my stuff with Boy Scouts, or the certain things we don't think should be off limits and stuff like that. It was like hiking 50 miles in the woods. I don't think that's something you should do. Your shoulders are, you don't have shoulders like everyone else, so you shouldn't do that. So for me, it is developing that I guess courage to just prove them wrong. That's why I just wanted to just prove people wrong, especially when they were saying stuff that I couldn't. They labeled things as saying you can't do this. This is off limits for you. So for me, it was just grabbing to just want to prove them wrong.
Can you give us a specific example where like someone told you can't do this and that's why you did it?
Yeah.
Because I feel that way too. I've been told my whole life that by certain people that you can't do that. That's impossible. And I've always been like, no, I have to do it now.
Yeah.
So I resonate very strongly with that.
Yeah.
What's a specific example where someone said, you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, and you were like, well, now I'm...
Well, I guess kind of my first kind of major thing with me was about the cardio stuff. I mean, I thought early on having the heart condition and stuff like that as an infant, they didn't think I should run track. So I ran track just to prove them wrong.
Okay.
And I was a sprinter. I mean, so I did it. I was going to go hard, so push the heart faster. So
I love it.
So I did that. And also in Boy Scouts, they mentioned about not because of my shoulders are underdeveloped because of the CCD. So they told I didn't like have a pack on me for 50 miles hiking in the woods. It's something that just would cut into the shoulder blades. You're going to get soreness. That's something that we don't advise. So I did it.
Nice.
And I did it in record-breaking time, and I was going. Yeah.
Where do you think that tenacity comes from?
For me, it's faith. I mean, and just knowing that if you have that relationship with God and what He says in His Word and apply it to your life, and Him being right there beside you, guiding you, that anything's possible. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so many people... It's interesting because I think I've had so many identities as a man, but it started out as a child, right? I had these identities that I thought I was this person. When you were younger, proving people wrong, was that part of your identity? And what is your identity now, today as a man?
I think it was part of my identity. Just wanting to just waiting for people to just tell me that I can't do it.
Did you expect it?
I expected it. I just people say, "Oh, this."
You can't put your book on Audible.
Yes, okay. I appreciate that. I really love that comment because something I've been exploring is whether or not I want to get an advanced degree or go get my doctorate or something like that. And I was talking to my mentor. He's like, I'm going back and forth on this. I'm doing all the research. I'm studying all this stuff about PhD or doctorate of something, or really searching see is it something that I want to do, and I'm just I'm pretty much complaining to him like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. It's something I don't think I need in my career field. I'm just making all these excuses. and he just comes back to me with something very simple. And I still remember to this day, he's like, the only reason why you're not sure about this because no one told you couldn't do it.
Right.
It's like no one said that you can't get I think your people are starting to believe in you, and now you're just like. So that's why you're not certain about going.
All of your reverting to your training was being told you couldn't do something, and then that's where the tenacity and the fire came from. I resonate so strongly. And just for a little backstory for the listeners, other than that rude comment I made, it's because I really wanted to listen to your book on Audible. I noticed it wasn't on there, so I had to use my Kindle, and so I wanted to tell you can't put your book on Audible.
Okay, all right. I need that.
You can't do it, man.
Yeah.
I don't think you can.
Yeah. So I mean, as I look back in all my life journey to now, it's always been those you can't statements that kind of just push me. I mean, even the current job that I'm in now. I mean, when I first got there, a lot of people said you can't do it. You can't develop a program here that's successful. That's it's been tried before. You can't do it. So just being told you can't, it's kind of been.
See how much he lit up when I did that?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You lit right up, like, oh yeah, let's go.
Challenge me.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to ask for help, we have a studio with mics. So
Yeah, definitely.
Right? That you're talking into right now.
Right.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I think that it was very interesting because when we went to Mass Maritime, we had no idea what the outcome was going to be. We didn't know how many people were going to show up. And I don't attest any of the people showing up to Alan and myself because they didn't even know who we were.
Right.
I attest them showing up to you. So when I walked in that room, I was like, obviously Wayne is onto something here with these kids.
Right.
What is helping others and teaching others, being around kids, what has that taught you?
It's taught me a lot. I mean, it's been a journey. Even as I talk a little bit about in the books about relationships, like I thought I can go to a college, do my job, and not necessarily be in relationship with those that I'm working with, as far as the students. And what they've taught me is how important relationships are. I was asking for help, and also just being in relationship with people to push you and to help you grow. And then I've over my time at the Mass Maritime Academy, it's been the students that keep me there. I say it all the time. It's they keep me here because they push me and I push them. We have this relationship that we just in this push relationship that definitely helps each of us grow. Yeah.
When you say push, you mean challenge each other?
Challenges, yeah.
Step up.
Step up,
Can
yeah.
you give an example where a student really pushed you to step up?
That's a good question. I mean, I wasn't.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Put him on the spot.
Put him on the spot.
Hyperconscious gauntlet.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's.
Did any of your students ever tell you can't do something?
No, not. That's. I gotta come back to that one.
No
but
worries.
that is a good question. But I've definitely pushed them. I pushed them to kind of.
Right.
I mean, really, to test their leadership and really just get out there and do their best. Yeah.
Leadership.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I'm big on that. You know that. That's what I spoke on at Mass Maritime. What do you attribute? I guess what do you think is the number one character trait of a leader, like a really good leader?
That's for me. That's number one. I give you two.
Okay.
I think you need these two in order to be. You need to be a person of character,
right?
And you need humility.
Powerful. Absolutely.
Those two things. I think you cannot be a leader without those two. I think you can be. You need those two. That's the essence of leadership.
When you say a person of character, what does that mean to you?
I would say morals,
right?
Ethics. I would say those things have to exist.
Yeah, integrity.
Yeah.
I say that all the time on our team. Like, if we keep in integrity with ourselves and with our core values, like we're always going to win in the long run.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your definition? So Alan and I, the reason we connected, and I talked about this at the speech a little bit, was because I'm humble, but I don't think it was because I wanted to be. I think it was because I felt like crap about myself. So it's easy to say, like, thank you all the time when you feel like crap. But what is your definition of humility, and how does somebody know whether or not, I know this might be a tough question, how does somebody know whether or not they're being humble or whether or not they don't value themselves enough?
But that is a tough question, yeah. I think if you have to start a place of having esteem for yourself. I mean, definitely, if you don't feel like you're a person of value or have value, I think at that point you may not be truly humble. Just feeling like I'm a bad person or I'm not a good person, so therefore I'm humble. So I think if you're a person with having high self-esteem, mid to high self-esteem, and then I think that you can truly operate in a sense of humility. Yeah.
Yeah, we always say, like, we know a lot of people that they're, so again, I talked about the Drive to 5 a little bit, I think, as well.
Yes.
On the lower end of Drive to 5, there's people who you really couldn't be arrogant if you tried. It's just not your nature. You'll always revert back to a lower spot. And I think you'll notice immediately, like when somebody who lacks confidence gets a little bit of confidence, they don't know what to do with it. It's a tool they've never used before.
Yeah, it's
so
interesting
they're just
to
like
see.
throwing it all over the place. But I think humility is knowing that you don't know everything, right? Like we know a lot, but you know way more about music and playing the trumpet than I could ever even think of, right? Alan knows a lot about this. I might know more. So I think figuring out how to portray your humility is the hard thing.
I think if you don't have self-confidence, there's no reason to have humility. When you have a lot of self-confidence, humility is so much more important.
Yeah,
If you don't have self-confidence, start there. Start with confidence.
Yes,
don't work on humility.
Yeah, I agree. That's the self-esteem. Having that.
Yeah, that's why I love that you said if you feel like you're a person of value, humility becomes very important. Trust me, you'll burn the plane right to the ground.
Yes.
I've seen me do it too many times.
So we were talking in the preamble about, I asked you, why did you write a book and why did you start talking about your story? And that's part one. So let's go with that. What made you decide that, you know what, I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to write a book, and these are my goals?
For me, it was something that I told you that it's not something that I wanted to do, something I felt like I had to do. I mean, the book kind of was dedicated to 3 people in my life that since have passed away. My mother and my brother. They're very influential in my life and really pushed me and kept me on that road of tenacity, stuff like that. So I felt like I had to, in order to honor them, since they're no longer here, and they're the ones that kind of would share the story in my little town, and people that knew them knew my story. So without them being around anymore, I felt like, and I had to tell the story, even though I didn't want to, but I felt like something I had to do in order to honor them.
So what do you say to somebody? Because we were talking in the preamble, you were upstairs, and we were talking about, you and I know a lot of people who have really influential stories, but not everybody owns their story. And you said for you, once you made it part of your purpose, it was non-negotiable. What if there's somebody listening to this right now who has some form of a story, and maybe they were abused or whatever it was, whatever their story is? What do you say to them in terms of, number one, owning that, and then number two, maybe sharing that with the world if they feel like they could be of impact and help others?
Yeah, for me, it's something that I heard a quote once that said, in order for you to be, you have to use, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling here.
No worries.
When you've been through a mess, it requires you, it allows you to be a messenger. So using your story to be a messenger to someone else, to share your purpose, to help them get to their purpose. So kind of that. So in order, everything I've been through, to use that as a tool to help someone else.
What if they're afraid of judgment?
That's tough. And I would say it's, like I said, that's a tough question. You got to really hit me hard with that. Because that's something I had to walk through too. If someone judging me because of things that have happened in the past, of my story, my walk, I think you have to get to the point where you're comfortable with that, comfortable with yourself, be enough to be able to share it, even though someone may not be accepting of it, or something, or say, though that wasn't all that bad, or you that was okay, or something like that. So get to a point where you're comfortable with being judged by it. I think that's you have to really get to before you're able to share it.
Yeah. How do we get there? How do you? I believe that. So I call it exposure therapy. I call it. Psychologists call it exposure therapy.
Yeah, exposure therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that arrogance again. Humility. I call it. No, the psychologists call it exposure therapy. So you got bullied, and so you were forced to sort of look in that proverbial mirror and try to find a way to find self-esteem from within rather than external.
Yes.
All the time getting validated, and I think that created a character that is so much more powerful intrinsically than it would have been otherwise. So how do people learn how to Like I tell this story, like I wore a mask in the gym over my face. I broke my nose really bad back in basketball. I got this mask to play with, and I told Kevin I do this because I want to learn how to not fear judgment. I can see people judging me, and I want to learn how to exposure therapy myself, if that's a phrase, to make sure that I'm no longer fearing judgment. How did you overcome judgment? Because you got judged a lot, more than most ever will, maybe.
I guess for me, it was like internalizing what's actually happening. Like what's happening when someone's making fun of you or someone's placing judgment on what's actually happening.
Right.
Really getting into that, the essence of that. Like kind of maybe putting yourself in their shoes. Like, why are they saying what they're saying about me? Is there something going on in their life? Is there an issue that they're dealing with? So trying to really just kind of get to, instead of it being about something about you, like something I'm doing, it's on them. And really actually getting to a point where I almost feel sorry for them.
Right.
Even though I'm the one that's getting bullied, I'm the one that's being name called, but I just think about that person.
Because you know they're unhappy.
I know there's something going on in their heart.
Right.
For them to be attacking me.
Exactly.
Oh,
Wow, that's powerful. That's very hyper-conscious right there.
That
So
is.
you had to become hyper-conscious.
Yes.
Acutely aware from a very young age. You said the essence?
Yes.
That's like the root of it?
Yeah.
That's interesting that he had to do that. Yeah.
What was there? So you had a lot of rough moments. You had a lot of things to overcome, right? Was there like a rock? Did you have a rock bottom moment, like the hardest out of any of those that you can recall that really made you figure out who you were as a person?
Yes, definitely something I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about, but I think it's appropriate here. I was in a relationship a couple of years back, and I think it was a rock bottom moment for me because I was at a place. Yes, I was. I mean, as far as career, I was doing well. I mean, I was essentially like winning awards, especially at the school, like employee of the year. I mean, I was doing pretty well, but in my relationship, I didn't value myself as a man enough that I can actually be with someone that was actually a whole person. So I was in a relationship that was a bad relationship. It wasn't a healthy relationship. The person was, to me, was very verbally abusive, tried to be physically abusive, and I thought that's all I deserved. To be in a relationship that wasn't whole. To be in a relationship with someone that wasn't whole. So for me, that was where I kind of hit rock bottom. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is not healthy, and I know it. But I was at a point where I had such a low confidence when it came to being in a relationship,
right?
That I accept anybody that wanted to be in a relationship with me. As far as, I mean, in a romantic relationship with me, I was okay with. And I was the first person I kind of showed some interest,
right.
But that person wasn't whole, and I was walking in that relationship. And so that was a rock bottom moment for me.
I resonate very highly with that. Yeah. I was like tearing up a little bit when you were saying that. I dealt with that for a long time. Yeah. It was like I never put any of the emphasis on them because they weren't bad to me.
Yes.
Right? But I didn't understand that I could be better and do better. And again, nothing against these people, but it just wasn't. I settled for a long time. And I thought that was all I could get. Yeah. So I resonate unbelievably. And thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of confidence in your career at that point.
Yes.
But what I think is interesting about confidence is that it doesn't always translate to each arena.
Yes.
Like we were talking about how you feel like Superman in the gym, but Clark Kent in sales, which we're working on. Yeah. But that I resonated very highly with what you just said because I feel like I feel very competent and confident in certain regards, and then I started to let my confidence erode in the intimate arena.
Yeah.
Can we go a little deeper as to why you believe that you had so much confidence in your career, getting awards and all that stuff? Yeah. Again, extrinsic versus inside the relationship?
I guess a lot of that kind of the master stuff that I built up for like what I said, I talked about how when people would judge you and kind of how I would put it back on them as far as something an issue with them. But in this arena with something so intimate, right. I felt like, well, this person's like in my space. This person knows like things, and this person for that in that area, I didn't feel comfortable as far as being able to really dive deep and really understand what's going on. I felt unfit necessarily be in a relationship or be in a relationship, and if I was, I kind of was willing to settle for something that I did. I mean, I didn't think I can be with someone that was whole. I felt like I had to be someone that was half, wasn't truly
what does somebody do? So I know for a fact a lot of our listeners have gone or are going or will go through something like that. How did you? So you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
What was the rock bottom? The breakup? What happened to create the rock bottom, and then how did you dig your way out?
The rock bottom was a breakup. I mean,
Okay.
I felt like I got to a point where I was able to stand up and say, I have value, and this is not something I can carry on with. This is something that this is not right. This is not a right relationship. This is not a whole relationship. This is, I need to get right with myself in this area. So, and that kind of really, I mean, it was a rock bottom that I was able to then begin to really work on myself. After that relationship ended, it took like a year or something before I dated again. I just was working on myself. I took time alone. I got to a point where I was comfortable being alone by myself. If I felt like at that point, after that year, that if I never found anybody again or never was in a relationship again like that, even though it's something I desired, I would be fine.
Right, but there's a difference between need and desire.
Yeah.
If the oxygen in this room goes away, we will die.
Yeah.
That's need,
Yeah.
necessity. Desire is something you want,
Yes.
which is where real true love exists, I think.
Yeah.
That was so powerful.
That
You
was
went
the
a whole
greatest
year.
advice.
Right.
That's the
Right.
greatest advice you could ever.
Yeah.
But and a lot of people say like, well, it's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Well, you did it, so you know what I mean. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not easy to say if you've already done it. It was hard to do. It's easier to say. But what were you thinking that whole? Were you aware of the steps that you were taking on your inner self, like on your inner work? Like, would you check in with yourself and say like, okay, when I go out, I feel more confident, or I feel like I would be more confident? How did you know when you were ready?
Ready to start dating again?
Yeah.
When I truly got I know it was a goal for me to get to a point where I can feel like I was whole myself. Because I felt like when I was in that relationship, I felt like I was a half person with another half person trying to make a whole, and that doesn't work.
No.
It needs two whole people to be in a truly a healthy relationship. So I need to really work on that other half of me as far as in that level. So I spent time just being alone. I mean, for me, it was diving deep in Scripture. I mean, I'm really reading Bible, just really searching for answers in there. I mean, really just my conversation with God, just really working on my faith walk. I mean, it was for me, but also touching base with my mentors and stuff like that. Just really touching base with them because they were ones that in my life that told me that this is not a good relationship.
Right.
So, and also being able to, I would say people that have mentors and people in your life, you want people you want truth tellers in your life, people that will tell you the truth no matter how hard it is. And they told me that. They told me the truth and they kept on saying the truth. It wasn't one time thing. They just kept on telling me that, and I didn't listen. So, but really taking the point to really listen to them. But for me, it was just really diving deep into myself and just really just spending time alone and just working on myself and just self-improvement. I mean, so did a lot of reading as well. I mean, other books, stuff like that. So that's kind of what my journey looked like that last year. And for me, the ending of that journey, and when I truly felt like I was a whole person, is that I challenged myself to do something that I normally don't do, is I went on an unplanned trip. All I had was a flight in and flight out. So
Where was it?
it was in Nashville.
Okay.
Nashville. Yeah. So I went on an unplanned trip. That's something I'm always a planner in my professional life. So I mean, so in my personal life too, I'm somewhat of a planner. So this is kind of a practice for both worlds. So I took an unplanned trip to Nashville, and everything that I did while I was there was unplanned. I just kind of asked for help as far as what to do.
Nashville's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But during that trip, I was comfortable being by myself. I was by myself the whole time. I mean, yes, I talked to people that on the street, but I was by myself and I was comfortable.
How did you feel? Was it like a rejoice moment where you're like, oh, okay, I think I'm onto something because I feel different? Or did you recognize the change?
I did recognize the change, and for me, it was gradual. Like, before I went on the unplanned trip, I would not necessarily go out to eat by myself. So during this year, I got to a point where I was able to go have dinner by myself and be fine with it.
Right.
And then I was able, that's something easy. You can go. There's going to be times when you're going to eat by yourself at a restaurant. That's something that normal. But going to a movie by yourself, that's difficult because normally that's a group thing. So got to a point where I was able to go to a movie by myself and truly enjoy it.
I've been there so many times, crying alone in the theater. It's so good. Inspiring movies.
So then came the trip. That was like the final exam for me to go on a trip and be in a city that I didn't know at that point. Didn't know. I just asked for help and be truly fulfilled in that moment, being there by myself and being truly happy to be there, and not feeling lonely.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So you have since mentioned that you have a fiance.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I resonate so much with what you're saying right now because we all have that whisper when something's not right,
Yeah.
but we like to silence it instead of, and then usually something happens where all of a sudden the whisper becomes a scream, whether it's a mentor saying it or enough feedback coming or a bad fight or breakup or whatever. So the inner work that you did that year,
Yeah.
I, from an outside perspective, would speculate brought this other person, and without that inner work, you couldn't have attracted this person.
Yes.
Am I right? Okay.
I completely agree.
Okay, so why don't more people do inner work? Because I just experienced the same type of thing where I went and did some inner work, forced myself to be alone, stayed out of the wrong rooms with the wrong people, not to say wrong, but like I cut away from my past.
Yeah.
And when I did that, and I forced myself to not go back into those old environments, I was forced to do that inner work and be alone, and now I've attracted someone who I think is unbelievably magnificent, who I never could have attracted otherwise. And only I know that, but I know you feel that way too. Can we go into why that inner work is so rare and why people don't do it more?
I think it's hard. It's hard. I think it's even though being in that, like I said, in that relationship that I knew was wrong.
Right.
I think some people it's probably easier to kind of stay in that world.
Right. It is easier.
It's easier
In the moment.
In the moment,
But
it's
then long term.
long term, but we don't necessarily see that. We don't necessarily see that. And I think sometimes we can get lazy,
Oh yeah.
and we just want to be complacent.
Right.
So I think
Was there a catalyst for you where it was like, that's it? Like I have to cut away from
Rock
because you
bottom.
were on the fence for a little while, right?
Yeah,
What keeps you off the
I was
fence?
actually on the fence because I was on the fence for a while, and I think it was me. I think listening to those voices, what people are going to say. Well, we were together, now you're not. Like, what's going on? And what's the real reason why you're breaking up? So kind of that social pressure, as far as like, oh, let me try and work on it. And that's things that I actually did. I tried to work on it. Let's go to counseling. Let's try and work this out. And that person didn't want to do that. So
And starting over is so scary.
yeah, it is. It is.
It's so scary. Because, and I think, so a couple things, right? You hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
When you're in massive pain, you're willing to take massive risk.
Yes.
Right? I think that's one thing. But number two, nobody really talks about it.
Yeah.
Like you see the picture of the guy and the girl,
Right.
and he's like, I finally got my dream girl. I finally met my dream man. And then people say like, how? And there is never, I spent 2 years by myself developing myself so I can attract something
Right.
like that.
Pretty lonely for the first part of it.
But,
Yeah.
but isn't that how it all is? Isn't it like the first 2 years of business sucks? You don't make any money.
brutal.
Yes.
You don't make any money. And that's because you don't deserve it yet. You don't deserve the money yet. You have to earn the money.
Earn it.
So, and also I knew you were a planner because you got here 25 minutes early.
Oh, yeah.
And most people don't do that. When I was like,
Yes.
my man.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
I
correct.
he was more on time to my own place than me.
Yeah, right?
I need that in my life.
Right?
Yes. So when you were in that relationship and you were trying to figure it out, this is something that I've also want to bring to our listeners. I've realized that in my last relationship, while I was trying to figure out what was happening in the dynamics, I was becoming more and more hyper-conscious.
Yeah.
I learned the love languages. I learned my core values.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is now I'm bringing those tools in my tool belt to my new relationship. Have
Yes.
you found that to be true as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think you really in that discomfort. I think you find that's where you truly learn. That's
Right.
one thing I really like to preach. In discomfort, that's where you truly learn. In that discomfort, I really understood what I am, that I do have value,
Right.
and just really going back to those core values about who I am, and this is why I don't deserve this relationship.
Right. And now you appreciate your new relationship 10 times more than you would have without the struggle bus.
Yes.
Oh, that's so fire. I resonate so strongly with this. Yeah.
I want to get vulnerable if possible. So you like when people challenge you,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're still not confident on? Is there any regard, any area of your life where you still lack confidence that you're working on constantly?
One thing, actually, I'm really big on, like you said, planning and goals. I keep them on my phone every year. I kind of set goals, and I kind of set in January and February, really trying to establish my goals for the years. And for me, I would say unplanned speaking. Something when someone's just like, you're not like you're going to a place or something, then you say, oh, why don't you get up and talk about this, or kind of, and also just speaking in general. I mean, to a crowd. I mean, something that I'm not necessarily the most comfortable with. Something that I'm definitely trying to grow in. So I would say something that's where I'm being challenged.
Is that part of this?
Yes.
Would you have said yes to this 3 years ago?
I would not say yes to this.
The
No.
universe provides
Interesting.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, we
Speaking of which, we
appreciate
might
that.
have
Yeah.
another opportunity maybe
Yes.
for speaking at Top Notch Live,
Yeah.
January.
Yes,
I feel
yes.
compelled to say that.
Yeah.
So we will talk about it.
I
We'll
think
talk about
that the reason I ask that is because anybody could watch or listen to this and say, "Oh wow, he's been through so much, he has it all figured out now." And I always say, like, all right, enough with the good stuff. Like, let's talk about what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
I say that with a lot of the guests
Right.
because I want the listeners to realize, just like the college students,
Yeah.
we might look like we have it all figured out. We don't.
Oh,
I'm
no.
burning down just like you.
Yeah.
But if I don't tell you I'm burning down, you won't be able to connect with me.
Yes.
And I think that what, in your opinion, you have the opportunity to see a lot of college-age people.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest struggle for college students or anybody in their late teens, early 20s is?
Biggest struggle, I would say self-confidence.
Mhm.
I see a lot of students that I just feel like they're not confident in what their abilities or even themselves, just in general. So I would say that would be the biggest struggle.
Why do you think they're not confident? Obviously, this is speculation.
Yeah.
We aren't them, but like, why? We found that too.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
came up with clarity and confidence.
Yes,
Seem
yeah.
to be the two biggest struggles,
Yeah.
which is why we're going to speak on that a lot. But like, from your perspective, why do you believe they struggle so much with confidence? And I think they're connected.
I think
Right.
I think I would say that's a tough question, but I would say it's maybe not understanding their purpose.
Right. Which
Not-
is clarity.
Clarity.
I was going to ask you earlier, and now I feel more compelled to, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your purpose, you talked about that earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
What is that, and how did you find it so that our listeners can find theirs?
Yeah.
Because we have a mentor, Evan Carmichael, and a friend at this point, where he says your purpose comes from your deepest pain.
Yeah.
You've had tremendous pain.
Yeah.
We have as well in our own regard. And that is where our purposes, our passions, our tenacity really came from.
Yeah.
How do we help people get clarity so then they can get confidence?
For me, my purpose, I feel like is what I've been put on this earth to do is to really help develop leaders. And to do that, I mean, any way I can. I think using my story, my past, all the mess that I've been through, to really use that to develop young leaders. I mean, so that's what my purpose is. And as far as how to help people get to their purpose, I think you'd really understand what they're passionate about, and where that passion and talent intersects. I think that's where you find your purpose.
Right.
Also, I just want to jump in and say, okay, so that is your purpose, is to help young people,
Yeah.
be a good leader,
Yeah.
teach leadership.
Yeah.
Would you want to be speaking if that wasn't your goal? Like, would you want to be on stages talking to people if teaching leadership wasn't your goal? I think a lot of people, you are clear. You have clarity, so you can start putting the things in.
Yes.
Right where
Which forces you to gain confidence.
Yes.
right,
Yes.
right. So now you don't want to, you have to.
Yes.
Right, like
Yes.
today.
Yeah, I have to. Yes.
You were nervous before coming here.
Yeah,
I
I
can
was,
tell.
yes,
We've
yeah.
been in front of this mic
Right.
Yes.
a million
Right,
times,
yeah.
but you did it. Why? Because of your purpose.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm glad you kind of
Right.
said it without us saying it, but
Better than we do.
we have to.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
do I want to speak? Of course. I love it. But I have to speak to your students. I have to.
Yes.
Because they need to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And you said that at the beginning before Alan, I don't know what he was doing, probably getting coffee.
Yeah.
But you said, I wrote my book for one person. If I helped one person, that's all that mattered. And you had one person reach out when you first released it.
Yes.
So I think it's beautiful that you're doing what you should be doing.
Yeah.
What is I always ask the guests this, I think it's a little early, but whatever. What is your ultimate goal? What do you hope to accomplish before you die, especially somebody who was told you weren't even going to be here?
Yeah.
So what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish before you leave this earth behind?
I think I know it's a little bit early in my life, but I feel like I've accomplished a lot of what I wanted to accomplish in life. I think we have a lot of people that make impressions on us, but I wanted to make an impact on someone's life, and I think like I've done that in a lot in my life already, and I plan on continuing doing that, not making just an impression, but an impact in people's lives, and helping them, just being that person that's pushing them to grow and get better, and that's kind of.
Can I challenge you?
You can.
Give me a number of people. Like how many people?
What I want to impact?
Yeah.
1 million.
Okay.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
I like
Cool.
it. I like it.
Says Kevin.
Yes. So
Kevin
that means I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of
But
Yeah.
I think you're capable of it. I just think most people just have to aim.
Yeah.
Like we're shooting every day. We
Yeah.
just don't know where we're shooting.
Yeah.
Once
Right.
you aim, it's like a million. All right, what do I have to do? Okay, that's X amount of stadiums of 20,000. Okay, where do I start? So
Famous last words. Super quick story.
there we go.
Guy goes up to the woods with a rifle.
Yeah.
Goes blam, 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 blam. Goes to his buddy, says, I really hope something good runs into that. That's what a lot of us are doing in life. But that's why you don't have confidence, is because you don't have clarity. Once you have clarity, it's going to force you to step up. And every time you step up, you're going to gain confidence, even though it's scary, because it forces you to face your fears. So I wanted to bring the listeners with that.
Bring
How much
the
time do we
listeners with
have?
that. We have
Yeah, right.
15 minutes.
We have 15 more minutes. Okay. What do you think the world needs more of? One of my favorite questions.
Well, that's a deep one. I would say love. I think what we see in the political environment we have here, I think what we're missing is just love. I mean, we don't. I mean, true love. I mean, not not the fairy tale type thing. I mean, just really love for each other, that for mankind and the brotherhood, sisterhood, having really that. Yeah.
I think that love comes from value, and value comes from an appreciation of what is. And I think that if we can learn how to appreciate other people, then we will add value to their lives, and then we'll create love.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. I think that's absolute fire. Because the opposite of, I remember Erica Reisberg, I asked her. Riesberg. I keep screwing that up. I'm sorry, Erica. You're still amazing. I'm just the worst. So the name of her podcast is
All Things in the Name
All
of
Things
Love.
in the Name of Love. So I asked her, what do you believe, what is your definition of love? She said the absence of fear, which I thought was really cool. I just wanted to bring that.
That is a great one. I have another somewhat deep question. So I think love is different for everybody, right? My definition of love might be different than Alan's, might be different than yours, Wayne. What is your definition of success? How do you know that you've quote unquote made it? How do you know when you'll feel like you feel like you have accomplished everything that you want to? Like, what is success to you?
Ooh, that's
Humdinger.
yes.
We're getting warmed up, so the questions are coming hot.
So that's I guess for me, it's when you're truly walking in your purpose and you're doing it on a daily basis. It's not something that happens maybe once a week. It's something that you get up every morning and you're walking in your purpose, what you were designed to do, and like almost at every moment that's where you're walking towards, and that's what you're doing. And then for my case, you're impacting people. Yeah.
So when your identity and your desire, or maybe your identity and your purpose, are aligned.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're if you're staying in integrity with self, which is aligned with your core values and your true north, which is your purpose, then I believe you will feel on purpose, and therefore you'll feel successful. How do you know when you're not? Because that's the compass.
Yeah.
Because when I can tell when I'm not, and I'm like, oh, I'm the worst. This sucks. Like, I have to get back on point. I always say that, which was today. No. But how do you know when you're off?
When you're off mission, I think when you're doing things that are the opposite of what you're preaching.
Right. Oh, and
preaching one thing, doing another thing. I mean, and that'd be something simple. Like if you say I'm a person that's going to be reading every day, and I'm not, and it's been like 2-3 days where I haven't read anything, or or if it's getting in the gym and you say, well, I'm going to exercise X amount a week, and you're not, then then that's when you start not feeling you're not successful at that point.
Right. Yeah. That was fire.
That was fire.
When I say I want to be punctual and then I'm not, it bothers me so much because I'm not congruent with what I'm saying. I'm not in integrity with myself. Yeah, it's fire.
Do you ever have, I know this is something that I worked unbelievably hard at. Do you ever have reversions where you revert to the old Wayne mindset during your relationship? Does that ever happen where you like don't feel enough?
Yeah, I think I have those moments, and a lot of times I end up apologizing. Well, I got to do better in this area or something like that. So I definitely have those flashback points, or doing something that's not congruent where I am now.
What do you do about it in those moments? I had one recently. Yeah, and it's hard.
It's hard. It kind of for me. It's kind of it takes it. I actually get quiet. I get quiet and kind of go away for a little bit and just kind of reflect on like this happened. Yeah, this happened. Let me figure out how make this not happen again in the future. Yeah.
For me, what's helped me is I say, where am I insecure here? And then it's like, okay, what am I afraid of? Oh, okay, it's me.
Yeah.
It's me again.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to admit that I'm afraid
Yeah.
to her,
Yeah.
and then she will appreciate that, hopefully.
Yeah.
Luckily, she does.
Yeah.
But
So one of the things we talked about before, again, Alan, you missed all the preamble, man. You really,
I know, that's my bad.
you
stuff,
really,
good
Jeff.
I was getting him water.
No,
I was, and plus I need coffee.
We were talking about authenticity and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Why, in your opinion, you've been very vulnerable?
Yeah.
Why is that important in terms of communication, impact, and specifically leadership? At this point, being vulnerable and authentic might be one of the most important things in a leader.
Right.
Why is that so important, do you think?
I think people want to. I think it's one podcast that I listen to, and the guy always says that people rather follow someone that's real than someone that's always right.
Right.
So, I mean, in leadership, you have to be real, and leadership cannot happen without relationship. So, if you're not can't be real, then you can't truly have a true relationship, and therefore you can't really truly have leadership. So,
Right.
I think you have to walk in that realness with people. And
By real, you mean walking in the truth.
truth, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
like the truth with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you delude yourself, how can you stay connected to others? Because you're going to be if you're lying to yourself, you're going to be lying to others in
yeah.
your communication.
Yeah.
They're going to sense the incongruence, and then you're going to corrode the connection. This has been
And people always have a feel for what's real, so they know you're not really fooling anybody. You're trying not to be real, trying to be on. I always tell people. I always tell one quote that I always have is that the truth will always find you out. It's just something you know. So you might as well just tell the truth and live in it and walk in it, because it's gonna. It's no use in trying to fool someone, because they're gonna find out.
And it connects us.
Yeah.
Like if Alan and I knew you probably would be nervous.
Yes.
And when you say like, yeah, I've only done one of these.
Yes.
It's like, okay, cool. Guess what? Now we empathize with you. I remember when I only did a
Right.
couple.
Yes.
I know how difficult it can be. So I think if you're honest and vulnerable, as long as the people you're not hanging out with are terrible,
Right.
if you're hanging out with people who care about you, they're going to accept that vulnerability, and you guys will be more connected.
Yes.
I
The
told
problem is
Alan
if
that.
you're with the wrong people,
I know.
they're going to attack you,
Yes.
and then while you're vulnerable, and then you'll shell up,
Yes.
and then you won't be vulnerable
I know.
again.
Well,
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
That's the problem.
So maybe you're around the wrong people. Remember what Tiff sent to
Yeah.
us recently with the value of the watch?
Yeah.
Dude, that was absolute fire. So for the listeners and for you, she sent this.
You want me to read it?
Yeah,
I'll do-
dude,
I'll
that
do
would
the
be
dramatic
so
reading.
cool. Oh,
Hold
Kevin's
space.
Kevin's
Hold-
about to do
hold
the
space. Hold space.
Grab the trumpet. Is it trumpet?
Yes.
Okay, grab the trumpet, Wayne.
Hyperconscious team. Oh my goodness, there's so many text messages in here. That's the
If
problem.
you go to the photos, it'll.
in the hyperconscious team.
Yep.
Here.
I sent it to Emilia last night. She loved it.
All right, here we go. A father before he died said to his son, "This is a watch your grandfather gave me and is more than 200 years old. But before I give it to you, go to the pawn shop on the first street and tell him I want to sell it and I want to see how much and see how much he offers you." Wow, this is difficult.
Yeah, see?
He went and then he came back to his father and said the owner offered $20 because it's old. He said to him, "Go to the barber shop near the courthouse." He went and then came back and said they offered $25. "Go to the museum and show that watch." He went, then came back and said to his father, "They told me that it was very rare and worth $20,000. The father said, "I wanted to let you know that the right place values you in the right way. Don't find yourself in the wrong place and get angry if you are not valued. Those that know your value are those who appreciate you. Don't stay in a place where nobody sees your value." Very appropriate.
Fire.
Very appropriate. I don't know who wrote that.
Kevin's
so
first dramatic reading.
Wow.
don't know who wrote that. Can't give them their due credit, but it is
But
absolute
Tiff sent
fire.
it to us. So
Tiff sent it to
gets
us,
credit
yes.
for sending it.
Yeah.
So we're coming up against it. I want to make sure, as promised, that you get to plug your book or anything that you have going on. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they learn more about your story? Where can they hire you to speak? Whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, toughblows.com. You can find all information there as far as my book and any speaking engagements. I can definitely open to that opportunity as well.
Soon to be on Audible.
Yes.
I'm kidding. Unless if you want to.
Yes.
I do have one more question. if
Sure,
that's okay.
yeah.
So the question that I always ask everybody. So you were at the speech and you know that I said this. So we cannot see the stars during the day. Sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which we couldn't in the light. So you talked about your rock bottom moment, and I think that every time we're in emotional pain and we're in the dark, we see something that we never saw before. And we have an aha moment where we become acutely aware or hyperconscious
Some would say.
of something
Some
that
would
we
say.
weren't aware of before. For you, we grow, we evolve, we change through those moments. What about you never changed? What's been your one guide throughout
For
your
me,
whole
it's
life?
been my faith. My
Right.
faith in God just never really waned. It was always there, even going through everything, and even at that rock bottom moment, I always knew that he was there, guiding me and helping me through it. Yeah.
Can I ask you what faith means to you?
Faith to me, I guess, as far as my faith, believing in Christ and Jesus, and just believing that He's here for us. I mean, He died on the cross and rose again for our salvation, and that's what faith means to me.
I think having belief beyond the current moment
Yes.
in something you cannot see yet is everything. I think that's so huge. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I have unbelievable faith in you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so very much for coming on here. Again, like, I know what it's like to be scared and do something anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll always resonate with you because you just do things that scare you, and I respect the hell out of that. So I just want to make sure that I give you the due credit, and it means the world to us. And thank you so much for having us to Mass Maritime as well.
Yes,
that was
thank you.
that was an honor.
That changed us. Seeing those students and they came up after and thanked us, you could tell they were different.
Yes.
And it was like, I knew they were more ambitious, and that's what I want. Be more ambitious. So the other thing I want to say, you went through tremendous adversity that most people cannot fathom. You made it out, and you're an incredible leader, incredible man. Privileged to know you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my honor. Yep.
If you could leave the listeners with a 10-second blip, your favorite bit of information, a quote, whatever it is, what would it be? Putting you on the spot.
Oh, that's Oh, I'm drawing a blank right now.
If it's more than 10 seconds,
Yeah.
you're good. I do 50-second blips.
Yes. I guess it to go off what you said as far as people and places and like that. I think you have to be in the right place with the right people to kind of help you in your purpose. So I think having all that three elements together, so right people, right places, will lead you to your purpose. Yeah.
I love it.
Wow, that's fire.
Right?
Strong work.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lieutenant Wayne Magee. We hope you enjoyed, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.